I've seen many different approaches over the past year and a half, much in the implementation of specific learning management systems. We have found that the selection of a learning management system has counted for a lot, meaning that a school district's ability to streamline which management system is being used goes a long way in the implementation of curriculum that's delivered in a virtual medium, because when students and or teachers have to access multiple platforms in order to get connected to content, there's a significant difficulty there. So one of the strategies that I would certainly say that I've seen that would prove most effective is honing in on a learning management system that could help deliver the content in a virtual medium in an effective way. One of the things that we are empowering and helping to sort of foster our school districts to do, and that is to tap into the resources afforded to them by community-based organizations. Neighborhood programs, whether they are the local library or Boys and Girls Club or a fast food venue or a mom and pop store that's frequented by the families that attend the schools, that may be open to providing access to Wi-Fi services with some guidance and specific instructions and provisions to families, so that students who may not have access at home can participate and be engaged outside of the school building in the activities that teachers have set up for them. Parents have gotten involved, our teachers have gotten involved, principals as well as superintendents in that outreach to those community-based organizations, and we've been rather surprised at how open folks are to sharing with our students in that way. It makes us very happy to know that there's something that can be done to help facilitate that. What we sought out to do was to create sort of a statewide broadband access opportunity. So we had our largest broadband providers compete for a contract to bring down the costs across the state of New Jersey to all of our school districts. And we're pretty much counting on that directly impacting not only our school districts, but also our families as well, because we can then provide a formidable argument for why, almost in the similar vein as the U.S. Ed is going, with access actually being a human right at this point. Because if we don't declare it a human right to have access, then we are only perpetuating a gap in the digital divide amongst the haves and the have-nots. And we can't have that. The first strategic thing that I would say that school districts would need to consider would be conducting sort of an internal human capital assessment in terms of deciding or trying to uncover where the talent is that you need in order to impart any type of curriculum delivery in a virtual medium. Tapping into the talent. And most of our school districts have found that there are lots of teachers who are already Google certified. They're already certified with certain organizations that definitely prove that they possess the ability to put this stuff together, and then to turnkey it to teach their colleagues how to do it. And we know that there's great value in teachers teaching each other and hearing from each other, more so than feeling that it's a top-down perspective in terms of how things change, right? Because ultimately it is a culture shift. The cultivation of buy-in from a school building leader or school district leader level is very, very important. One of the things that we have found as more and more school districts are looking to deliver content in a virtual medium is that when our superintendents are on board and they too are very versed in what the possibilities are, and they can speak to it right down to the classroom level, it's gone a long way with the cultivation of buy-in from our school building leaders and then thereby our teachers. In the state of New Jersey, the early adopters in the implementation of this type of strategy, they are leading the charge. They're directly assisting my office, and they are helping us to spread the word and to help scale and to increase confidence in moving forward in these next generation innovative practices, such as online learning or the delivery of content in a virtual medium, as we like to call it. We sought to create an application to assess where our school districts were, what did they have, what did they plan to do, and what are their potential sustainability practices moving forward with the implementation of student-centered opportunities, delivery of content in a virtual medium, one-to-one implementations, etc. And we have seen that in the initial induction of our first 10 cohort members, that we asked them to partner with another school district that represented a student demographic 180 degrees different from theirs. So that meant that we were going to ensure or help to ensure that students who would normally be considered disenfranchised would have a partner on a high leadership level, the superintendents partnering together to help level the playing field and decrease the gap in digital access. The way we reached out to our early adopters consisted of initially the evaluation of their application to become members of the Innovate NJ community and my actually scheduling visits. So I conducted site visits. I drove to the school district. I wanted to have them come alive for me, their application. And the early adopters, surprisingly, they were school districts that they could say that they had done one-to-one programs, for example, for almost a decade, a few of them. So they had been doing it for quite some time. They had student academic progress already documented by way of the data from their state examination assessments. And I thought this was an excellent opportunity to tap into them as leaders in this charge to scale innovative practices across the state. It is very much a coaching or mentorship model, and very important to have them provide their successes and failures. They are very open and very honest, even with the connections that they've had with certain organizations, the approaches that they've had to reevaluate. And it goes a long way when you can provide a school district with an actual tangible model, right? It is a variation on professional development that appeals to the learning styles of adults, right? And just as with our students, they want to see, they want to actually touch, they want to interact. Our school district leaders and school building leaders want to do the same thing, and so Innovate NJ provides them with that opportunity. We visit each other's school districts, and we also convene together 4 times a year in order that we can share with each other what we're doing and learn about what we can come together to build on. The New Jersey Department of Education Office of School Innovation is seeking to implement its own iZones, so to speak. And the point of that is to do just that. It's to identify next generation instructional practices and to figure out ways to help foster and facilitate the replication, adaptation of those practices across the entire state. So it's comprised of 3 tenets. The first is a community component, and that component is heavily connected to spotlighting the school districts that are doing really great things in the education space around student-centered models, around personalized project-based models, blended flipped classrooms, for example. And so we asked our school districts that were doing these things to provide us with video. We've posted those on our website. We are touting and spotlighting superintendents and teachers who are doing really great things, students as well. And we found that there are some really awesome things happening in the state of New Jersey, and we wanted to ensure that folks knew about it. The second tenet of Innovate NJ is our clearinghouse component, and that provides our educators with a feel for what's happening on a national scale in the innovation space. What are other states doing? What's happening in places like Colorado and Massachusetts and Maine and Washington, and how are other states moving forward in the age of teacher-leader evaluation, in the age of assessments and standards that are across the board being applied to most of us, but then at the same time, they are still moving forward with innovation. And so we wanted our educators to know that it's being done in other places and that we could do it too. The third tenet of Innovate NJ is our initiatives component, and that component are what are the New Jersey Department of Education supported programs that traditionally we don't necessarily refer to as innovative, but in fact they are. So the variations on seat time, for example, that are happening within our career and technical education programs. We want to make sure that we spotlight those programs because we don't want any particular group of student or population to be left out of this movement. And so we are utilizing the initiatives component to highlight that as well. Also, placing emphasis on Title I dollars, for example, and how those dollars are used to move forward and foster and provide access to schools that are considered traditionally underserved, and how those dollars are used for innovative programs as well. One of the things that I think we have going for us, one of the many things, is that we are not a centralized state. Many of the states in the United States are more centralized, meaning that a lot of states have decided what the innovative approaches were going to be and how they should be passed down to the district level, and New Jersey is more localized. So we are operating in a predominantly from a more of a support standpoint, but at the same time an informed guider. We understand that our school districts look to us and they appreciate the support because it empowers them to move forward, and we want them to take that love, that empowerment, and pass it on to those educators that are a little apprehensive about moving forward. The students have had nothing but the most positive things to say about their progress. For example, they tend to say that they get more work done and that they are more actively engaged when they are interacting with content in a virtual medium. They appreciate being able to learn and in what's now being considered non-traditional settings, and that innovation doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the device, and that they can begin to see that they're learning processes for how to actually determine on their own whether or not content is good, and what that actually means. And so they have, their teachers are letting them know, how to identify, good supportive content for a particular concept or skill that they're trying to learn or teach themselves or reinforce or teach each other. They are appreciating the opportunity to collaborate with each other, our students. And when you're looking at the implementation of content in a virtual medium, students can, meet each other on their, utilizing their phones, or, pop up in a coffee shop and interact locally that way. I think overall the feedback that we've received from our students has been great. We have students who have developed their own apps to help teach themselves concepts that they had trouble with in a traditional setting, where they couldn't quite figure out why, when they were reading a particular textbook on a particular concept, that they just couldn't do it. But if they could visualize it and learn a particular programming language to help them teach it to themselves, and then practice with their peers and teach it to their peers by way of an app that they created themselves, goes a long way. I've had several students introduce themselves to me as app developers. I've had students introduce themselves to me as programmers. They show me the games they created. There's a whole host of learning and progress that's being made that I just want to ensure that everyone has access to, that everyone is exposed to, that everyone feels empowered to embark upon, and that we begin to break down barriers of information sharing and get more comfortable with bringing each other into the fold. It broadens our landscape. It opens the world of possibilities, literally, meaning that, on an international landscape, there are things that students in this country have for many years thought were not possible for them to experience. And when you start talking about curriculum that's delivered in a virtual medium or in an online, quote unquote, way, it really opens up the world of possibility of learning that there are like minds, learning about different cultures, having an educational experience that really does create a diversified student population with a broadened perspective, a heightened level of experiences that extend beyond their everyday surroundings. The urban inner city kid who can actually speak to their relationship that they develop with another student in another country. Entire classes of students who, can teach each other their own languages and customs. And yes, to say that I'm excited is an understatement. I very much am. One of the things that I've seen very successfully is in the Voorhees school district in the state of New Jersey, which is actually a southern school district. Initially, we found most of our school districts that were doing great things that popped up immediately were northern school districts. So when we found Voorhees, we were very excited. And what Dr. Diane Young, the assistant superintendent of the Voorhees school district, did as a start out, she got all of her key players in the room. She understood that it wasn't just going to be what she thought the transition to next generation instructional practices was going to look like or be, but that she was going to have to tap into her curriculum specialist, her content supervisors. She was going to have to reconceptualize what her classrooms looked like, how she was going to, if they were going to be devices, what they were going to look like. And so she got everyone in the room and she created a committee. She called it her Innovation Committee. That's an excellent place to start. She then broke her committee up into groups. And one of the things that I thought was very, very interesting about the groups that she created, one of them was called a branding group. The branding group was, what do we want to be known for as a school district? And to me, that's significant because it means that she is thinking about the culture shift that was going to need to take place and the buy-in that she was going to need to cultivate amongst educators that may have been, significantly apprehensive or that are, in the middle, not really sure, but that if she could get everyone on the same page by way of this branding of who we are, what we stand for, and what we want our children to have as outcomes as a result of this effort, that was going to go a long way. So in addition to her saying, what are all of the folks who across our K-12 schools who are honed in on mathematics going to do, and how are we going to ensure that as the students move from elementary school into secondary school, how are we going to ensure that they're prepared? She overarched it, in my opinion, by saying, what do we want to be known for? Because if we can go back to that when we get apprehensive or we're not really sure, we can answer the question, are we doing what our mission and vision actually says we initially set out to do? And I think that's an excellent place to start. You get the key players in the room. You understand that it isn't just about what you think as a superintendent, but also that it's a learning opportunity. It's a learning exchange. You're going to conduct a human capital inventory. You're going to find out who has what skill sets that you may not even known about, and what they can bring to the table and in what capacity, who can work with whom. And it's also an excellent opportunity to assess where people need to potentially receive professional development opportunities because you need to appeal to the variations in learning styles of your staff members as well. It's also an excellent opportunity for you to revamp your mission and vision as a superintendent. Maybe you were thinking that you were about one thing and now as per the digital, charge and the infusion of technology and innovative practices, you need to reevaluate what you're about. And so therefore you need to rebrand or reinvent yourself, reinvent your school district. I think that's an excellent place to start.